The caveat is that they're all connected. So shadows kind
Yeah,
of feed from one another in the end, and the gifts feed from one another. It's almost like you tap into the shadow, you turn them all on across the board, and it
yeah.
depends. No matter what key you have your shadow in.
People like you that are enabling great change for others, and just your presence, and just your being. And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be a celebrity to do it either. You could just be walking down the street or sitting in a room.
Yeah, and you're making the difference.
How can I contribute something?
Hmm.
And that's a big fear too. It's like, oh, I'm going to change my city or my town or my country. Like, yeah, it's possible. It starts with one person.
Hmm.
The 11th Gene Key, the shadow of obscurity, gift of idealism, and the city of light. If we have the 11th gift or are contemplating it, we can use the beautiful richness of the right brain visions and archetypes in our life to launch it into a higher level. That is our greatest gift, to catch others on fire with the light that burns in our heart. Our gift is our heart, our love, our devotion.
'11th, Gene Key, the day before the solar eclipse.
Right?
Do you think this is coincidental?
No.
So why do you think the 11th is happening? Well, we didn't really calculate this way. I didn't even know solar eclipse is happening until recently, like a week ago.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's
So,
interesting that we were going to do 11 last week and it didn't work out. And here we are doing it the day before.
and it is, what are you connected with? Like, how do you put the solar eclipse and this 11 G key together? What's the connection for you?
This shadow is obscurity. So obscurity is like blocking light. So it's just, it's almost like two on the nose where I'm like, okay, usually there's like a little more puzzling, figuring things out. This is just like not hard to figure out. It's right there for you.
This was easy.
Yeah.
I loved it, and I read it again, and then I brought another book, which literally speaks about this a lot. Have you heard of Stanislav Grof?
Yes. Psychologist.
Yes, and his connections with Freud and
Mhm.
like holotropic breathing exercises, yoga, all like Carl Jung, all these different like science or whatever hypotheses coming together in this book. This, what I just read a couple of days ago, was literally related to Richard's downloads and the light and the opening of the other side of the brain that we suppress. So I'll read a little chapter. I actually highlighted it here.
Awesome. Cool.
Okay, so the fascist regime of the human ego.
Mm,
Really cruel. Sounds very harsh.
yeah. Yeah, to start with this, I was just reading it and I was having the experience of reading it and understanding what the words mean individually, but having a very difficult time connecting, like feeling like a personal relatability to what's being said. So I'm sure we will
Hmm.
pull that apart as we talk, but I just wanted to start with that.
Is this usually did you read it last time too? And did you have the
I don't
same impact?
I read it last week. I don't remember feeling that way,
Huh.
but today it could too be a factor of like time, like feeling a sense of rushing or
Mm.
um I really with certain things like this, often it's like, okay, you just slow down, take a breath, read it again. And if I slow down enough, it will hit or I'll hear it. Or
Mm,
it's like just come back to it at a different time. Like it's not,
mm.
this isn't the
So you
moment.
can't, it doesn't have, you can't taste it all the time when you're
Yeah.
reading it. Yeah, same thing
Yeah.
happened with me too. Okay. Okay. So I am afraid of 11 Jinky.
Yeah.
It actually triggers a lot of fear
Hmm.
of how do you know you are doing what you're supposed to do in any given time without being worried that you're actually pulling yourself away from your own path.
Mm.
So when we lose that trust in our own path and doing what we're doing, the fear just creeps in immediately. So as I was reading The Shadow of Obscurity, it made sense logically to me, but it felt so heavy because it is almost everybody is in this shadow, um, where everything is logical. We're using our brain a lot for logical thinking, logical life, and we're suppressing the right side of the brain where everything is fairy tale
Mhm.
because we have to be real. So how I understood it as I was reading it is like we we don't we're beautifully artistic people.
Mhm.
We have love within us that comes in forms of dreams, fantasies, art, music, songs. And we are so programmed and so professionally, like it's engraved in us to actually suppress this side of the brain, which is the feminine side of the brain, and live the life in the system that we're living in, which is the left side, logical and very masculine. So while we're in this shadow, I felt like unless I dig into Renaissance or a Bach, we talked about Bach the other time,
Mhm.
or a music, um, to tap into that field of energy, we really wouldn't feel it. Your major is in art. You tell me, how do you feel when you tap into this side of the brain versus 99% of the time when you live in in the left side of the brain, which is the logical?
The experience for me is generally speaking one of freedom, and it's very present minded. I know Richard talked about that in the shadow. It's like if you're truly in art, you're not thinking about how it's going to turn out. Like if you're drawing something, how it's going to end up. Or if you're
Mhm.
dancing, like, oh, what's my last move I'm going to do at the end of the dance? You're not really dancing. You're doing something else. So in that sense, the left the left side of the brain where we logic, we prepare, we plan, we even live out the archetypes that have come before us. It's like our present state where we're living from the left side of the brain is a merging river of past and future meeting together and trying to figure our way, trying to row the boat in there. And then doing art is like, I'm just going to dive in the river and see what happens.
Yeah. So you're talking about just only being, rather than being stuck in the past or present or two different energies that always want to be dominant. The only way to get out of it is really being in the now.
Yeah. Yes. A lot of surrender and flow. And yeah, it would be, are you artistic in any way? Like drawing? Yeah. I know visually, like you like creating posts and doing videos, but what do you have any other passions or hobbies?
Music.
Music.
I sleep with music. I wake up with music. I don't listen. I don't watch TV. My music is on 24/7
Do
all
you,
my life.
yeah. Do you play any instruments?
I have conga. I have
Oh, okay.
guitar.
Yeah.
I have a little mini, I have a hand drum. But the music, in a sense of, I can hear the instruments in the song, and I literally can just attach myself to that one instrument rather than listening to what they're saying. You can
Mhm.
feel the melody of it and you're just moving through the melody. But yeah, since I was little.
Yeah.
You?
Yeah, similar. Drums, guitar, and yeah, I should stay humble and just say those two. But I'll play with anything.
Hmm.
But it's interesting, like when you are creating something and you have an objective, it's like even with the objective, it pulls you into the left brain, and the art or the music becomes something. I've heard Rick Rubin. He's I don't know if he's in LA, but he's a really famous music producer.
Hmm.
He said the act of recording music, um if it's spontaneous, like you have like four or five musicians together and they're creating something, the moment you record it and you listen to it back to try to improve it, it's like it's done at that point. Like you can't really go back to that moment of inspiration, of flow, of like integration where you're it's interesting in that it's like you're in a field where you're not communicating on the same wavelength as you are in normal life, but so much
Yeah.
magic can come out of it.
Yeah. And it is because of the light.
Mm.
So he talks about this shadow specifically because the right side of the brain is almost where you tap into it, you actually access the light, which is the lighter state of the being, which is why it's called enlightened state, because you can tap into a completely different consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't really have the access to it unless we trust ourselves and we come from the heart. So let me read you one thing that I highlighted here.
Sure.
It goes, the 11th shadow greatly limits a very specific functioning of the right hemisphere of our human brain. That aspect of your mind that does not see patterns and facts through language and number, but grasps reality through reams of interconnected and intuitively grasped fractal images emerging from the deep recesses of the brain.
Mm.
Intuitively guided images.
Wow.
And Stanislav Grof talks about this specifically. That's why I wanted to read and connect too, because when you are in a non-conscious state, or which he calls non-ordinary state, which is dreams, meditation, when you transcend, which is transpersonal state of mind, you actually enter this realm where you can either hijack your nervous system completely if you're not ready to receive the
Mm-hmm.
information from the higher self or higher consciousness, or you can enter and receive the cosmic knowledge. And he speaks specifically about being so strong that unless you're prepared for it, you can literally cause the death, which is kind of dying of an ego, but actually dying of your true self, identified self in the ordinary state of mind. So it's really interesting that it's the intuition that will drive you through it. And you can feed it from your dreams, you can feed it from your states that are unknown, like known to you, possible to you, but yet we shut them down. Do you have like have a moment when you know that there is an information downloaded into your brain that you just ignore, reject immediately, or don't want to even focus on? Do you get like hints, higher conscious hints here and
Yeah.
there?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's yeah, of course. And I think if you get each person, I'm sure there's outliers, but I think if you take each person, you give them a safe container and really help them feel safe, supported, secure, like get all their needs met, and you ask them this question and they truly felt safe, I think everyone could admit to something like a hint or like a spark or like a an image or a thought that comes in that's like it's either warning you about something or telling you like don't do this behavior or letting you know like whatever it is. But
Bring umbrella.
yeah,
Bring umbrella. It's gonna
bring
rain.
an umbrella. Yeah.
And you're like, I don't need it. And then it pours on the top of it. Do you have an example?
Um,
Recent that you remember.
I would say when I am numbing with social media or YouTube, anything like this, there will be moments, which this is so interesting. Some people might not believe it, but the interplay for me it used to be like a thought would come in and it's like, hey, right now you're like, you sure you want to like just kill time right now? Like, is this what you want to do? And now
Mm.
what happens is like the technology won't work for a moment. And it's like, I'm
A
like, oh, right.
glitch.
I'm like, oh, right. Okay, let me close this out. Or not. If I'm really like stuck in the shadow state or trying to really numb, like I just, whatever it is, then I'm like, okay, just refresh and try it again and see, or get past it, get through it.
So it's
But
giving you the
that's,
hints.
yeah, but it's like my higher self is able to now disrupt the technology somehow for me. Or it's like shielding me from, I don't know how that works, but
Mm.
how about
I
you?
love it. I love it. I have, I mean, I don't really know. And I think he talks about this as well. It's like you never know what's gonna happen out of it. But
Mhm.
somehow you just trust it. And I think I am borderline doing it more than I should be doing it. Or it's like reality hits you, you're like, oops, I just made a mistake, or I don't know. But somehow I always trusted that for whatever reason, I'm protected enough to be guided, whatever that I need to get guided. So if I make an error or if I exit early from the freeway, I'll just hop right back on it because there will be a sign, but not the sign's not in a form of a registration plate says something or this number I see it repeatedly. Those things don't happen to me. It's just an instant hint and I'm like, oh no, I have to do this today, and I just know and I have to do it. So the other day I had this dream. So I was doing this practice and I tried it because I just have been restless a lot lately, a lot. This Mercury retrograde is kicking my ass.
Yeah.
I was like, fuck, I can't even rest, I need a little sleep. So I would wake up in the middle of the night with all these different thoughts. And I'm like, these are not my thoughts. I know. Like, this is not my energy. It's very heavy. It's different. And I'm not losing my mind. I know I'm not crazy. So I was like, what do I do with this? And how do I stop this? Right. So there must be a way. So I heard that before you go to bed, you ask your higher self or your higher guides to close off your energy so you don't leak your energy, which means in your dream states you don't exit this body and you go out there and you try to fix all these problems and make sense of nonsense, right? And I did it. Oh my god, Eric, I slept like a baby. Oh
Yeah.
my god. I was like, I'm not ready to leave tonight. I want to stay in my body and I really want to have a rest. Please close me off
Yeah.
and patch me. I don't want any leakage of my energy, and then I don't want any energy to come in. And it works. So
Awesome.
in the morning, so the night after that, I forgot to do that, and
Yeah.
then dreams flooded me. I've been water everywhere,
Yeah, lots of water.
emotions, like I'm saving this person, I'm saving that person, there's like this problem with this problem, and I'm like, she's sinking down, I'm lifting her up and carrying her over out of this ocean of water. And it's like, whoa, I woke up totally tired and exhausted. So whatever that the hint or synchronicities in these dreams were, I immediately forget them. If the first thing that I do, I grab a phone rather
Yeah,
than just
right.
sitting and actually thinking what just happened so I can get something out of it or some sort of message, or because the world that I just attended and I went and visited was not non-ordinary state of
Mhm.
mind.
Mhm.
And this is where we feed that this is where we heal our shadows. How I see it is
Yeah.
like if we allow it to come and become part of our life as well.
Yeah.
So if somebody tells you you're living in a fairy tale, get back to reality.
Yeah.
Like, but why? You need a little fairy tale too.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's interesting, right? It's like what what makes you say that in this moment that you need a little fairy tale? Because I'm sure there's viewpoints out there that um
Oh, good
would
question.
say that all that is right here. So why should we fantasize or
Yeah, I mean, why even trying to? So it comes down to the feeling of it in the body.
Mhm.
Is that when, so I don't know, is this true or not? But the interpretation of dreams is not just the definition of the image
Mhm.
and the name of that image or a scene or a people that we saw. It's rather the emotions that we went through and the state of the body. So if you feel fear, that it's the fear about something related to it
Yeah.
rather than the water or emotion or saving someone or something. So
Right. Mhm.
if you feel it in your body, which also is the shadow here, is like, how do we get out of it? The only way is really to feel the sensations in your body of when you enter this state
Mm.
where chaos doesn't have a logical order. Nothing is linear. Things are just flying into space, and you have a white canvas, and you get to be Picasso of your dream and put the
Mm.
two together
Mm.
and try to see. I can't get to that level where I'm like constantly living into that state every day. I actually have to make an effort to get into the state and say, what do I feel today? Like, how do I feel expressing whatever that I'm feeling in this moment right now?
Yeah. Right. And so when you're saying like fantastical or fantasy, are you referring to like kind of like the meditation where you're clearing first and then you're allowing images in? That would be different than like a direct like oh, let me imagine or fantasize about a world that's different and just play that out in my imagination. Or does it not
It's
matter?
it just happens.
Mm.
I don't. So example is it will be really good. It's like I cannot read specific books every day. So I read multiple books at the same time, right? So I cannot grasp such a graph all the time. I actually have to wake up with my energy that will absorb the information that is in Graf's book.
Mm.
But while I'm reading Graf, I cannot read book on relationships
Mhm.
between male and female heterosexual relationships and how to coach them. I can't. So
Yeah.
it's like there's almost like a feeling of I don't feel like playing a guitar rather than I really want to just like sit in the water and a bathtub. It's the feeling. And I never planned for that canvas to happen. It just comes to me. And when it comes to me, I feel that I have to do something. So I'll give you one example also. While I was doing I had a week long worth of diving into the art a lot. And then there's a Serbian artist that I really admire and her work. And I told you about her, Marina Abramovic. So I have her books, and she just published the recent book of her life. But the book was done by this like journalist who went into her warehouse worth of 55 years worth of work and all these collections of work that she just stores and went through all these pictures and all her requisites and was just picking up stuff and filled it in a book. And the artist never knew the pictures that she would pick up. So it was almost like I show you this picture and you tell me the commentary about it, and I write a book about it. It is phenomenal. You
Mm.
literally you literally look at the picture and you read her commentary and you sense the feeling that she had of a memory back in her childhood, in her early stages of life, of work. And it's like, how can I feel what she's feeling? I'm actively participating as a reader into this book of art. And I couldn't stop for 3 days. I couldn't stop. I just entered her world because it was so prominent and so feely. But if you ask me now to read the book, it's probably not going to be the same feeling. So
Yeah.
I follow the urge for it and I just honor it. And I enter the space and I am literally getting goosebumps. I'm making noises with her, how she says it. She cracks morbid jokes and laughing about it. I want to cry. You feel this connection with the piece of art because it's touchy. So there must be something.
Yeah. Yeah. And that resonates with me. And listening to music, like if I have my cousin has similar music taste to me. She's very eclectic and she's like, have you heard of this artist? I'm like, no. And I'll get one song that she sends, and all of a sudden I'm like, that's all I want to listen to for at least a day and a half. And then now, like, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember I have this artist, and I'll try to share it with a friend, or maybe I'll just play it for myself. And I'm like, yeah, it's good. But on that day, it was like you said, like goosebumps, like you're feeling everything. It's like really powerful. Yeah.
Yeah. So can you can you say that we actually have, on occasion throughout the day or our life, we actually have turned on our right side of the brain and felt free and safe to use it, to trust it?
Mm. Yeah, of course.
I wish I could just live there.
Oh,
I would love to.
I think there are people that do live there, stay there.
Can I digress? I think you'll like this.
Sure.
Maybe it's just like 5 minutes. And then because it speaks on this a lot. So the this is experience of the creator and of cosmic consciousness. And I truly believe that Richard Rudd touched this realm or dimension or frequency and downloaded the entire 64 keys. Truly, truly, deeply. Okay. The experience of cosmic consciousness provides important insights of deepening our understanding of the highest forms of creativity. The literature on creativity is filled with examples of extraordinary artistic, scientific, philosophical, and religious inspiration that came from a transpersonal source and that occurred in a non-ordinary states of consciousness. So he breaks them down in three major levels. The most superficial form of creative inspiration. The person struggles for months or years with a difficult problem and is unable to find the answer. Then, quite suddenly, unexpectedly, and often in a single burst, the person finds his or her solution. This usually comes while that person is in a non-ordinary state of consciousness, while dreaming, during a period of great physical exhaustion, in a hallucination caused by high fever, or during meditation. This is one form, the most basic form of entering this right side of the brain. Mm-hmm. The second form of creative inspiration, an idea may suddenly emerge long before its time has come. In this case, we might experience an inspirational flash from the transpersonal realm years or even centuries before the development of scientific base that would justify or make sense of it. Example is atomistic theory, Darwin's theory of evolution, understanding of time, space, and matter that converged with visions of the universe. It is now generally accepted in modern philosophy of science that intuitive insights of this kind represent an integral and important part of the scientific exploration of nature. So this is the second one. The third one is where the CD of this speaks to. And you tell me, do you find the correlation with 64 gene key and how this came out of blue? The third and the highest form of transpersonal inspiration is the Promethean impulse. This occurs when the scientist, inventor, artist, philosopher, or spiritual visionary has a sudden revelation during which he or she envisions an entire product in a completed form. The fact that a genius draws from transpersonal sources is reflected even in everyday language when we refer to such extraordinary achievements as divine inspiration or gift of God. The most famous example is Einstein's theory of relativity, Nikola Tesla's construction of the first fully functioning alternating current generator, whose complete design appeared to him in a vision. Tesla had similar visions, wireless power transmission back in the day, solar generators that produce power from ocean waves, and a wide range of robotics.
Mhm.
I heard of people having kids who can just draw the entire generators or some sort of like machinery.
Mm.
So English poet William Blake said, "I have written this poem from immediate dictation, 12 or sometimes 20 or 30 lines at a time without premeditation and even against my will." Maria Rilke channeled her sonnets to Orpheus in their complete form and required no correction. Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart claimed that he often found his symphonies in his head in their complete and finished form, while Richard Wagner heard his music emanating from his inner ear as he composed. So some of the states are, straightway the ideas flew in upon me directly from God, and not only do I see distinct themes in my mind's eye, but they're clothed in the right forms, harmonies, and orchestration. One more. The music of the operas was dictated to me by God. I was merely instrumental in putting it on a paper and communicating it to the public. The paradox of the René Descartes' Discourse on Method, the book that reformed the entire structure of Western knowledge and that provided the foundation for modern science, came to its author in 3 visionary dreams and a dream within a dream, which provided the key for interpreting the larger dream.
Wow.
So to get to this state, what do we need to do?
Interesting that you asked that. First of all, it's like one of the coolest things. And before you open the book, you were just touching on it. And I was thinking of Nikola Tesla. I'm like, oh yeah. Thinking of Nikola Tesla. Because I believe that he was, well, now a lot was written about him. He had so many inventions and like so many are lost that it almost seems as though he was capable of just being on the right side of the brain consistently. Um, more than the average person for sure. But when you ask how do you get there, I just listened to a podcast. Merlin Sheldrake, he's a fungal scientist, the son of Rupert Sheldrake, who is what's his theory? If you don't mind, I will look it up because this is really relevant right now. Morphic resonance.
Okay. Morphic resonance.
Morphic resonance, which the theory postulates that all organisms have an associated field that shapes, organizes, and stabilizes the form that they take. These morphogenic or morphic fields of an organism are influenced by all previous similar organisms. So what he studied is, like before an earthquake, animals will act really, really strange. And we have all these like earthquake scientists with all these probes and different things, and they can't figure out when an earthquake is going to happen. But if you watch birds or dogs' behavior before, like you'll see that. So he's kind of pointing to this more mystical side of nature and how it plays. And in this podcast with his son, who studies fungus, they talked about entering the space of creativity. And one way to do that with writing is just by stream of consciousness, where you just write, and eventually what will happen is it'll kind of develop a form. It'll just come up. And similarly with music, uh, can't think of his name right now. The producer, he'll have great artists, he'll have them just sing along to like music in the background, but just don't try to match the words. Just like use whatever words. And he's like, and they'll just track them for 15, 20 minutes, and they'll pick up phrases that are coming up, and they'll kind of pull the phrases out and show them and share them. And then that will reveal the song that's like emanating out.
Damn.
Yeah. So that to me that's like a way of getting into it. And in a similar sense, you could imagine like a dancer, like you just begin to dance to anything, and then all of a sudden, maybe
Hmm.
something from within will emanate out.
It's beautiful. Do you have time in your life? Do you find time in your life to dedicate to the creative side of your brain?
Mm. There's two answers to that. There's the no because I don't make time for it. And then there's the yes because creativity shows itself or it can reveal itself in different ways. And I find even a conversation like this is um it's a bit like jazz music. We're improvising, and I really do feel like more of my brain is lit up when we're having these talks.
Mhm. You mean like a bigger portion of your total brain?
Yeah,
Not only I gotta do this, and go and drive on
right.
auto.
Yeah.
True. I gotta admit something. When we started this podcast, I was trembling on my words. I don't know why. I mean, nowadays I blame everything on Mercury retrograde, but it's like my brain is not functioning the way it knows how to function. I'm not really like eloquent on auto.
Mhm.
Rather than if you were to close your eyes and just speak whatever that comes in, that's when the right brain will show up and
Right.
come like start firing and will fires together, fire or whatever,
Yeah.
wires together, right? So it's like you start spreading all this firing of your brain and something comes up, which is beautiful. And it's often because I don't need to worry, right? So when we get into these talks, I don't need to worry about what you think. It's almost like, not that I don't care what you think, but like more like I already know that you're going to agree
Hmm.
no matter what, right? So it's like we're going to agree on everything that we're saying because we're not really trying hard to be correct or accurate or right in what we're doing, right? We're
Mm.
actually practicing philosophy through this.
Mm. Absolutely. And that's an
Mhm.
important feature to be mindful of. Um, is the right seeking, the correct seeking language or conversational style. It's
Mm.
it's like that, like when you go to improv class, I've never taken one, but I've heard you go to improv class, they'll give you one of the first exercises you'll do is yes and. So you'll never disagree with something or what's being said or what's being like projected on. You're agreeing with it and then you're adding to it. And that's like so powerful in getting you into
Mm.
that space because the minute someone tries to make themselves right, and this shows up in our personal relationships more than anything else, it blocks flow. It makes us feel like, okay, well, that conversation's done. It's like you just have this like slam on the brakes.
Mm.
We're done having a conversation. I'm done making art. I'm done writing. I'm done reading, whatever it is. And
Mm.
by it's almost pointing to that trust of the universe that it's got you. And this conversation or whatever your art is kind of like a microcosm, fractal reflection of the macrocosm that if you can step into that container and say, I know that we're going to agree or that we'll find our way through it. Therefore, I'm letting go of the expectations, the judgments that are coming in or that I'm giving to myself. And now I'm finding my voice. Doesn't actually sound like mine anymore. and it's just flowing. It's easy. And
Mhm.
that's really beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. And this is how I used to, and I don't know what happened with it. So how I would get the hints of the language that would just come in a form of story. I don't know where from. I don't know why. They happen in a grocery store while I'm driving. Like literally while I'm like just like flying at the airplane. It's the most boring thing you can do is just sit in a can that it's flying in the cosmos out there.
Yeah.
And suddenly I look down through the window, I see the clouds, I'm above them, and bam, inspiration. And I'm like writing and it comes out of blue and then I read it and I'm like, this is not how I talk. This is literally not mine, but it's beautiful. It's worth
Mm,
sharing.
mm,
Oh, I love this. And I as much as I am afraid of the shadow of this, I really love to see when people tap into this side of the brain
mhm.
and get to express their uniqueness through it.
Yeah.
Love it. I
Yeah.
admire that so much because it speaks directly to you. It's like this is like no layers, no walls, no colors, no definition. Doesn't fit any logic, any defined state of whatever archetype that you want. It's literally expression of novelty, innovation, creation. It's like you just like sit and drink all this artsy goodness. Whew.
Yeah. 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 And so the shadow that you're fearing, I want to step into that a little bit, but I do have something that's coming up right now, which is like the identification with types or archetypes or personality quizzes or Enneagram or even Gene Keys or human design or our star charts or natal charts. It's like, can you help me understand the relationship or maybe the process, whichever it is, of first identifying shadows so that we can shine a light on them, but also there's like the temptation of attachment of like, no, this is my type, this is who I am, I'm never gonna change. Boom.
Mm.
Because I have like this rebelliousness that comes out. So Carly just got a book on Enneagram from a friend, and she's like, "Oh, I'm type 2, and you should look at your type." And I'm like, "I guess I could be that one, but I don't think so. I could be that one, but I don't really agree with that." And then I got to this point, I was reading it, and I changed like 4 or 5 times, and I'm reading it, and I kind of threw the book, and I'm like, "I hate this book. I hate
Woo!
it." She's like,
Is
"Why
it
do
because it's like,
why do you hate it?"
why?
I'm like, because in a way, they're asking you to kind of like identify with an archetype.
Mm.
And I'm sure getting into it, and I don't want to hate on it when I'm just like new to it. If that's your jam and that's what works for you and it helps you work through things, more power to you. But for me, there's this element of like, because you can type yourself and because you can kind of choose the things that you have to work on or not, and there's there's this weird element of it's a trap or it's like limiting or it's almost like, yeah, okay, I have my shadow. I got my shadow. I'm all good now. And it's like you're actually using this as comfort. It's not meant for that.
Got it. So it actually limits you because now you're not unique. You're just part of a group of people that identify with the same thing. You're not you. You're not unique,
Yes.
true, powerful you. It takes away the power from you, especially the power to explore who you truly are and
Yeah.
try to test your grounds and your limits, your own capacity. Nobody
Mm.
has the limit to capacity. It's all about how many questions you ask and what
Right.
it is that you're questioning in life. And if you question everything, more power to you. Seriously,
Yeah.
literally.
Yeah.
I love this question. And I must say one thing that there is difference in the feeling and there's a heavy feeling when you define yourself or label or identify with something that it's known in the world or environment or culture that we're living in, it's very heavy. And that's why it doesn't really feel light. But when you tap into the other side of explorative, adventurous self and unique you, there is no weight. Literal. The difference is how it is that you're feeling. So yes, when I read about Pisces specifically, natal chart and everything else, it's like I have this weight of ill, like right? So it's like, but no, I know on the other side, the moment I shift from Pisces, emotional, I don't know, crybabies, all these typical things that you hear about it, and I don't need to defend it at all. It is true to a certain extent. But at the same time, that is so heavy to me. It's like, if I am explaining myself through this process or this already known language, that I really am taking away my power. But rather than, if you say mysticism, that you then open the door to something that has no limits. And everybody can be a mystic, but the way I express myself will be very different from the way you express yourself, even though we're entering the same field of artistic mysticism.
Yeah.
And it's ever changing. It's never the same. It doesn't stay in one form. It changes the forms. It changes the feelings. It changes how you express yourself, what you're feeling, what you're receiving from it, what you're giving to it. It's a total relationship with it that it's unconditional, rather than complete chained way. So to me, this has weight, and to me, the other side is completely weightless. And maybe it's easier for me to, right? They call us the Lulu. I don't know if you heard it. Every time I hear the Lulu, it's like the Lulu, but that's so good. It's not that it's almost like, it's not that you're delusional. You're allowing yourself to explore different way of thinking. You're philosophically thinking. You are expanding your vocabulary, your capacity to talk, to think, to feel. It's huge. Not everybody can do that. And really go back to the weight of, oh, but I'm going to be judged. Here's the fear. I have to belong. This is easier, and just like gets trapped in it.
Yeah.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm curious if you feel the same way as I do when reading the shadows of the Gene Keys. There is an element of, or there's a feeling of, oh shit, like this has got me. But it doesn't have the weight that when I read, it's almost like Western psychology. I think that's the difference. Is this has Eastern flair. It has the total view of humanity as the backdrop. It's very Zen in that way. Whereas when I read things that are very Western, it's like principled, scientific, categorized, classes. I don't know. It's just like, and there's a type in there for like the person that's like, fuck your your classes and all this stuff. But even in that, I'm like, I just don't. It's just heavy. It's like heavy and ugly. And so the question was, when you read the Shadows of the Gene Keys, what is the feeling that comes up, or how is it different than something where you read it and you're like, oh, like I'm reading about being a Pisces and this is so heavy, and yeah.
It is the realization that I myself are living in a Western culture. Well, I had an epiphany and aha moment reading this CD, which we'll come to it. But I'm product of the environment that I'm surrounded, and I am consciously choosing to be in the United States, in LA, where everything is material, looks, logical. You push the boundaries in a different format of material world. Like you're innovating the vegan, the mocktails, the healthy living, but as long as you look good.
Yeah, yeah.
right? Rather than you can't really sit at the bar or in a bakery or whatever and have a deep conversation or have that connection, that there's a disconnect, right, with people. But it is heavy to that extent that I'm literally living in a perfect soil for me to live in this shadow of
Mm.
be so logical. Money, 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 money. Career, 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 career. Good cars, like fancy
Yeah.
clothes. Like it is. I am. I. Why am I here? Is what represents me peeking out of the shadow. Because if I'm questioning myself, it's like I know I'm here logically, and I know the heaviness of it, but I also know that I want to tap my toes in the ocean alone, that I want to read the poetry, that I want to spend the entire day in museum actually contemplating the Van Gogh alone without anyone bothering me in my world, right? So it's almost like I have a sense of it that it's very much alive in this heaviness. But it is scary because it is very logical. And the Western world, very much pushes us and really elevates this shadow a lot by default because your entire environment is living on this. So I have to make an effort, allow time, day, moments, specifically waking up in the morning, doing my ritual, having a specific sense of I want to create this space where I get to create to find the creative side of me and whatever that comes up now. But
Mhm.
even this is like if everything is routinely every day is the same, I have to move something. I either move the furniture or I exit this environment and I go and do something else. So it's heavy because I am living in it and
Mm.
I see it in a lot of people. And I'm really trying to exit and allocate the time for the creative side of me, which is the feminine, right, side of the brain.
Mm.
You?
Yeah, thank you for that answer. If I'm reflecting back what you're saying, that might be why, or a component of why I don't feel the heaviness when I'm reading the shadows, because here in Hawaii, there's not a whole lot. There's not a whole lot of there. I
Mm.
mean, it exists, but it's I feel a lot more people are living in the gifts
So
than
it's the environment.
probably LA. Yeah.
Hmm.
I'm curious about Serbia. I imagine is more Western than Eastern, but geographically, you're right on the line. You know, you travel 500 miles east, and you're in the heart, the mainland China.
Oh, China is so far away. We
Is
don't
it
have
not
the
that
East.
close?
Very, very far. We're more like a Greek Orthodox. But Serbia is completely untouched by any type of westernized way of living. We have one McDonald's in the entire country.
Mhm.
And kids really don't grow up eating McDonald's. They
That's good.
we eat wild strawberries. So it's still to this day it is. So yes, you we get to practice this with nature together. But I always wonder, it's like because we live in the cities, not everybody first has a luxury to live in Hawaii,
Hmm.
second near water or in exotic places, right? And the third, there's a lot of like almost like the density of population if you want to make anything in life or do anything, or maybe even come and be plotted in the middle of the wild city to make the change. It's like you
Hmm.
have to be really strong in it. This is why this side of me never dies. No matter where I am, it's still part of me. I need it. It charges my battery. It's like if I don't have that creative side of me, it's like I'm almost literally plastic. I'm shallow. I don't feel fulfilled at all. So if I don't feel fulfilled, I change. So I changed many times my environment, and each time the same creative side followed me everywhere I went. It's just you're living. Is it so? Let me ask you this:
Yeah.
does it take you to change the environment to learn how to exit the shadow, or does it take your effort to do it anywhere, no matter where you are?
Oh, yeah, it's definitely the second option. It's definitely a personal effort.
When we move to Mars, what are we gonna do out there?
Oof. Well, the thing is, you're moving with people. The shadows are going to follow us wherever we go. Um,
Mm,
and I would imagine that we're Earthlings here and we have a beautiful planet. If we end up making a civilization on Earth, like they will truly become Martians, I think, within a year, because the environment will shape everything about them. And I think what a difficult place to try to make it. Because you're in a desert with no atmosphere, a much different view of the sun, and you're looking back on your home planet, reminiscing about the joys that you thought were so easy to give up. And it's going to be, it's hard to fathom.
yeah, the water, the green, the
Yeah.
plants, the energies in general. It's like you don't need to go to Mars, just go to Vegas.
Yeah.
Same
Go
thing.
to go to Vegas the week after Halloween and you'll feel the same. But at
Yes.
least, but at least there's movement and vibrancy and aliveness and vitality. It's riddled with shadow, of course, but at least it's not completely dead. And there's even like a dynamic, flowing, energetic feeling when you go into the middle of the desert or into like, way up north somewhere. Like you still have this feeling of like you're still within the cycles of Earth's, Mother Earth's hold. Like she still got you, and yeah.
Mm, the gravity is just holding you. There's this one saying, I don't know if I said this on the probably I said it in a previous keys too, is like, um, everybody goes to desert like no one, nobody, and they come out like somebody.
Mm,
Because you attune yourself with the desert and well, I don't know, I've never done it, but if you like, I think Moses, Jesus, and the religious myths really ended up being enlightened there because all is left is you.
yeah.
There's nothing else. That's literally all is left is you, and you become one with the nature around you, with rocks and sand and the dust and everything. And the flies don't even eat your sweat anymore. You don't sweat. You become you, and you find yourself. Then
Hmm.
you can come out like somebody.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful.
Uh, did we do a justice on the shadow, or do you have any
Let's
parts you
let's
want to
touch
touch?
on the well, you did touch on delusion, reactive, and the repressive is fantasizing.
Ooh, ooh, I have this one here for the repressive nature. It goes, so if you, oh, so if you, it turns inward and creates a world of fantasy if you repress this side of yourself.
Hmm.
And your inner fantasies that do not find a creative outlet block us from following our true destiny
Hmm.
to a point where the longer we hold them within, the more twisted they become until what began as a simple archetype becomes perverted into a much darker form.
Hmm.
Damn.
And there's a mention too about when you don't when you don't embrace the fear, it drains your body and being and leads to illness and sickness and yeah.
Isn't this heavy? So heavy.
Yeah, this is heavy.
This shadow is very heavy. I don't know. Compared to other shadows that we went through.
Well, it's literally like the energy of the eclipse, right? It's like this weight and this, ancient cultures and native cultures have omens and rituals that they do around eclipses and things that you should do to protect yourself. Much like going into, I guess, in a similar way, in fractal nature, when you enter the dream state, it's a bit like being tossed to and fro by whatever energy is out there, and you're having to play a role and respond. And much of that is done on an unconscious or subconscious level, so that we can consciously sit here and say all the right things, but it's our inner being that's going to be acting. So when we step into the energy of the eclipse, that same thing happens. And I think a lot of people have this repressive nature of fantasizing, and something that's come up even in the spiritual community, or especially in the spiritual community around the eclipse and around um, the past 4 years especially, is this fantasy that the new earth is coming. And I don't mean to like discredit it. I'm just saying it's a fantasy that the new earth is coming, the old systems are going to die, there's going to be like war and famine and all this destruction. And that in itself, you're not embracing the fear, right? It's creating a drain on your body and being. And the body and being, if we're projecting that out as a collective, like all of us are like, the system needs to change, like let it all burn, let's start anew. It's like we're projecting that out. Where is it going to go?
Hmm.
It's gonna either end up back facing back toward us like a mirror, or Mother Gaia is gonna absorb that energy. So it's heavy, it's super heavy and very challenging.
Hmm. You know what's interesting? Because when you speak about the spiritual community, it's almost like it almost feels like it's doomsday in their mind, and they're
Mhm.
and I don't. I heard this from in other countries that I visited recently, and from people directly who reallocated from different countries just to go and live in the community that embraces the simplicity of living, or like the meditation, the high frequencies in yoga and retreats and all kinds of different like workshops and like life living,
Mhm.
simple nomad way of living in the nature. Okay, correct me if I'm wrong. In the nature, hoping they will become one with nature, meaning they will attune to the consciousness of the nature, and if so, that they will then become enlightened. And it sounds to me it's like they're prepping themselves for the doomsday
Mhm.
that might never come. And if the doomsday comes, it's going to hit us all collectively,
Yeah.
rather than no matter where you are. It doesn't matter city or the woods, redwoods. It's the same. We are not trees, even though we live in the environment and on the frequency level that blends our frequency with their frequencies, right? But we are human beings, and as human beings we have the power to change our own frequency, which changes the environment that we live in, but not only your side of the town. It changes the entire frequency of the earth,
Mhm.
no matter what. So please help me understand and enlighten me. Are you getting any enlightenment or any type of change, true deep change within you, if you're part of so-called spiritual community?
In a way, I guess it feels like seeking validation, comfort, or connection. Validation, comfort, connection within the community or within the way of living. Um, but it's an active role, right? And it actually points to reactive nature. Potentially you're deluding yourself. Potentially you're living in a delusional reality. Potentially. I think there's some merit to wanting to create and share that type of living with others, and try to bring that energy into the world, because in a way they're saying the system as it is doesn't work. Let's try something different. And that in and of itself is a great thing. But I think
Yeah.
if you become deluded or or even worse, like I think what we're pointing at too is like the worst way, the worst thing that's coming out of it is needing now validation that the world will end in a destructive way to be like, see, we were right for going off grid and planting all this food because now the world's burning. It's like, well, are you contributing to a society that can survive that, or are you contributing to the destruction? And where do you draw the line? This is getting like, we're I don't want to sit here and project out that we're like better than anyone else, and we're just philosophizing. I just want
Yeah.
to push on that button real quick, but
Yeah. Yeah. And to add to that, we're trying to understand how the shadow can actually work no matter what age you are or where you come from or where you live. It's almost as trying to we always get stuck on the shadow much more than on the city level anyway, because we're trying to understand it,
yeah,
and which is itself a shadow.
right, right,
Exactly, this shadow, obscurity,
right.
rather than creating something new.
And I think it contributes to that feeling of heaviness within the shadow is um you and I are kind of like walking walking a staircase or like a narrow staircase or climbing a ladder and saying like, see that shadow down there that we moved through, and but you're obscured in our perspective. And I think that's kind of too something that can attune you, getting back to the left and right brain, is if you're able to shift perspective outside of my two eyes, my nostrils, my two ears,
Mm.
what's coming in, what I'm able to perceive. If you're able to get beyond that, then the obscurity kind of floats away, like a cloud.
But so good, such a good point. How do we explain? How do we talk about the shadow unless we tap into it?
Unless we become it or become part of it.
So this whole work is literally, we have to split ourselves in three different parts
Yeah.
of ourselves, and like when we get into the shadow, it's the heaviness of it, like every
Mhm.
time.
Mhm.
Yeah, but I agree, it's like it's not that it's not familiar to us at all. It's very familiar and very present. We I wish we know how to, while tapping into it or embodying the shadow, to crack jokes about it, but we can't because it's part of our collective consciousness, right? We
Mhm.
see it around and we live it. We live it.
Yeah.
We live it.
And paradoxically, just to throw this out there as we move to the gift, um, I just want to bring up the point that Richard made, which is the cities and the shadows are coexisting. They're together where you can step from the city into the shadow, like around itself, and then vice versa from the shadow into the city. And it makes sense. Obscurity and light. Well, I say it makes sense, and then nothing came up, so I guess it doesn't make sense.
Not yet. Let's just learn how to walk first. Let's talk about the
Yeah.
gift. Okay.
Right. 11th
This one,
gift,
this sounds magical. Magical realism.
magical real.
Realism.
Hmm. The 11th gift is one of the great keys of our present age. The more people who can be encouraged to play with the imagery and creative power coming from the right hemisphere of the brain, the more healthy the world will become. Yeah. And it's interesting, just in diving in the shadows, we kind of pointed to this, the health of our collective and the health of the planet too.
I love this.
Mhm.
I love this part. How often do you laugh?
I laugh. I, I can't quantify it, but I laugh as often as I think one should.
Well, I mean, what's the measure? Is there a measure of how much we should laugh? Should be like
Um,
3 spoons of laughter.
yeah, it's like your cheeks should hurt, your belly should be sore. You know, when you're if it like the next day and your belly's sore, like you got together with old friends or something. That's one of the greatest feelings.
What makes you laugh the most in life? Like the latest one.
My kids make me laugh every day.
Oh,
And
it's the
it can be like they're triggering me and they're little shits and it's hilarious because I'm like laughing at my own trigger or like my own frustration or my own like defeat. Um, or it can just be like their innate humor and sense of humor and ability to
yeah.
find the simplest things and make them hilarious. I'm like having these kids are such a gift for me because I think I would be much more serious without them.
So you
Much
get to play.
yeah, much more playful with them.
You get to play, and out of that, you have this power that you're tapping into when you're playful, and that you're laughing, which is ideal state. It's so beautiful, and it's so temporary.
Mm.
It's like I cannot imagine living into this state of constant playfulness and constant well, not yet. Maybe because in our 30s and 40s we're supposed to go and climb the tree or climb the mountain and not just lie down and be like whatever the life. Whoa. But I did meet people that are recently, actually, just I went with a friend of mine on a dinner the other night, and she said, I've never had hardship in my life. And she was so serious about it. And she's in her 50s, has kids, and it's like life just served me all this, like everything in my life. I have never heard a person say this ever. And
Mm,
I thought she was so joyous and she was so light. Her skin was lighter. We're the same from the same country. So I'm pale, but she was
yeah.
lighter herself. And she's like, I don't understand what it means to live hard life. I always had everything I always wanted. It's so beautiful to hear someone say this. And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, there are people that actually are always joyous and constant. They're born into the gift. It seems like into the CD
Mhm.
level.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
like,
yeah.
yeah.
Something that came up was because the gifts in cities are playing, the gift is playing in the present and the city is playing, well, how should I say that? I think of the city of forgiveness, right? How it annihilates from the future back to the past. And when you said you met someone that was like, oh, I don't have any hardships. If you ask me now, I could tell you my hardships. I could maybe make a list of things that were difficult for me at the time. But I can frame it that it was for me and it's the best thing for me and it was wonderful for my development. So I'm just kind of bringing in the potential for people to like the ability to reframe it and have a higher perspective.
Rather than what it is,
Perhaps we could all, what's that?
rather than what it is.
Yeah, and not denying what it is, but
But there was something about her energy that made me
yeah.
trust her as that was her truth. Maybe in that moment, maybe the alignment of everything and all her energy was like speaking through her at that moment. But the energy was so joyous.
Hmm.
I was joyful. in front of her.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started talking. I was like, well, then everything that I wanted to share is why even share? Right? It's like we're totally not at the same level. I want to get to your level.
Uh-huh.
And I just kept, quiet because, whatever. And we always talk about this, I think, for every single key and I touch spaces. Everybody has a different time. And I keep saying this a lot. It's like, it's almost like the timing is off for everybody. Like when she's joyous at that moment, I might not be.
Mm-hmm.
But the tables can reverse, right? So same thing with us too. Sometimes you don't feel like talking, I take all the talk. And today I just don't feel like talking either. And
Yeah.
it's like you can just sense the energy of it. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know.
And how did that resonate with you? Is that something that felt far away?
It was beautiful.
It was beautiful.
I loved feeling it, not
Mm-hmm.
seeing it, feeling that. I am pretty sure there are souls and energies that live in a gift.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe not all see these states, but their own way of gifts and don't understand the shadow.
Yeah.
Don't have any shadows, no traumas, or just are here for just that
Yeah.
playfulness to play this game and win every time.
Yeah.
What?
So where do you place yourself against it? Because it does sound like it's like personally, do you think that's possible for you at some time or at some level or stage or
Well, all the way up to this time of my life, I have 38 years behind me. I have never, ever, not once actually, got made a step that was easy,
mm,
or it was given to me
mm.
by or inherited, or
Oh,
don't worry, here, you don't have to worry about it, right? So it's just yours. Like it doesn't really come my way. I
mm.
actually always have to go and search for it. So
And
I don't take the easy. I don't get the easy cards. It's almost like I'm served with just hard cards. I have to choose which hard road I have to take.
mhm. And is that not beautiful too, or is it just yeah,
I think it's beautiful because it made me who I am.
yeah.
And I also don't think it's for everybody, really.
Hmm.
It's like it's almost like you heard that one, you're served what you can handle.
Hmm.
It's like it almost depends on your capacity of how much you can handle. I'm not saying I have more capacity than she does, but it's so beautiful to feel. To me, it's beautiful to feel that not everybody has to do it my way. Not
Uh,
everybody has to go out there and really fail 5 times before, not 55 times before you succeed and get embarrassed and,
mm,
like actively go through all these shadows in order to get to states that are lighter.
right. So is that similar to saying there's a phrase of like I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy? Like, do you feel that way about your life? Or would you do it again? Maybe that's the question.
Yes. I would wish I would wish the capacity to handle life alone on your own is really scary. And I wish that the capacity is gifted to everybody around so you don't have to rely on someone else because there's a certain strength in it that
Hmm.
you can't crumble no matter what, that you will find the water in the desert if in a case you have to. That strength gives you almost like the base to explore and how far you can go.
Hmm.
Right. So that's my way. And since the day I was born, I was not gifted anything like this. I actually have to go and search for it and seek it and explore it and try it and fail it, and without actually carrying anyone with me, or without having someone who knows how to do this, that will tell me, you do it this way.
Yeah.
And it shapes you very differently from people, which is why I question everything, which is why I'm exploring how far it can get, right? Which is why I'm not afraid to go into the unknown, which is why I'm not afraid to say what I'm not supposed to say or do, or, look what I'm not, kick. But again, it comes down to my gene keys as well. In my gene keys, I'm supposed to destroy all these traditional ways and structures. So, that gave me a free ticket, or a ticket to go and kind of destroy. Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you and this friend become friends?
So she's,
Go ahead.
I've known her husband. We were good friends he actually lives here, and she just came like a year ago with her kids.
Mm-hmm.
And they live here like 30 minutes from me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Same culture, beautiful people, beautiful, very, very structured family. And we have the same way of being raised in the same culture. So we have that deeper understanding. But yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you for entertaining my questions. Just got really curious about that perspective.
I know. Why?
Because for me personally, there's like moments in life where I'm like, I could say, I have it all. This has been great. So wonderful. I would do it again over and over and over. And then there's moments, could be like weeks apart, where I'm like, why did I choose this? This is horrible. And this is so difficult. And it's breaking me in so many ways. And how can I handle it? And I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy. And it shows up in the same life. I just wanted to kind of pull the thread and see the depth of your perspective on it. And yeah.
There was this one key that you and I made a comment in the previous talks where we talked about annihilation of all shadows. And even if we had all shadows annihilated or wiped off, and this is the one where we actually had a very different opposing different ways or different perspectives. So even if all shadows, all of it, all the heaviness is to be wiped out, and we moved to another layer of consciousness, we'll still end up having the bottom layer, which at that level will probably be considered shadow. Right? But that timing is what is really in my mind, is like the moment of two people talking together or two people meeting together. How you and I and Carly met. I mean, come on, what are the odds? That moment is where you get to practice your state with another person. Your current, the only state of consciousness at that moment. But that moment is not forever. It doesn't last forever. But in a moment when someone crosses your path, my path, and tells me and gives me this energy of joy and playfulness, and no matter what words she's saying, it was all about her energy.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, she gave me a glimpse, even though she might be only living it in that moment. Maybe tomorrow she'll end up being divorced. You don't know. But it's the timing of it is what really is like mysterious, and it's like magnificent. It's fairy tale. It's the timing when you enter with some other energy into the space where this gives you a little bit of hint or a hope, or a different taste of different consciousness that you might not be in that moment. Yeah. Because that's all we have. We have a moment. We have now. We don't have tomorrow. Tomorrow might be very different.
Yeah. Well, most certainly will be.
So if you were to ask me the same question tomorrow, you'll probably get the different answer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for that. That was.
Thanks for question. Usually I'm the one interrogating you.
All right. What do you think about this? So he talks about the pairing of idealism and realism. And the 60th gift of realism, however, so it's saying essentially that these are opposites, is actually founded upon a magical truth that the only thing needed for magic to occur is some form of structure and an open mind.
Mm.
This is not in any way at odds with the true nature of idealism. What most people think of as idealism is really the obscurity of the 11th shadow that is unable to manifest its dreams. For idealism to manifest in the world, all it needs is a structure to manifest through. So I wanted to ask you about that because it was at this point in my reading where my brain kind of turned off, or my ability to comprehend it shut down.
That's normal. I don't know what form of structure he's talking about here too, but I do know what he means by open mind without the structure. So if this to me, when I read it meant was we were gifted both sides of the brain. No matter what, we'll always have the logical left and the artsy the right, to simplify them both. We'll have the order and we'll have the chaos. The idealism, how I understand, is the ideal state of both actually functioning rather than just the logical side of it, just the systematic logic of pure calculative way of living or living this life, living this moment. So what I'm doing right now, I'm using my logical brain to explain this gift. But in my mind, in my other non-logical, chaotic brain, if I were to take a moment right now and feel through the feminine side of the right side of the brain, the creation, instinctive creation of something totally not logical will come up. And if I were to talk about it to you, I will be Picasso. My eye will be on my forehead, my leg will be on my arm, and I would not make sense at all, right? So we open mind and structure is how I understood the ideal state of this. That we need both in order to live here, human life. We need to feel, again, the emotion in order to elaborate on them. But we can't say the emotion is wrong. But we need to accept, understand the emotion and accept that it is part of you. So whatever form of it that comes in, whatever that you want to call it or define it, whatever aspects of life, even religion or the prayer or the ritual or the solar eclipse that is coming, it is logically there. It is going to happen no matter what. But what is that you're feeling and getting out of it? Is there anything else other than what you know as is? So that to me is the structure and the open mind. And so the 60th gift of realism, however, is actually founded upon a magical truth, which is that the only thing needed for magic to occur is some form of structure and an open mind. I want to be able to look into the sky, understand that I'm sitting in front of the ocean in 2024, but that on the side, I am in the structure. I am present here. This is where I am. I am not crazy. I am here. But I also want to see what my other states can actually bring me, feel me, fulfill me. What comes up? What are the images? What are the feelings? What are the sounds? What does this, is the water talking to me? Is there a word out there? Does it have to be the word, right? So the moment I close my eyes, I exit this realm and then I enter something else and I can just explain and talk.
Mm. Mm.
How does that sound?
That sounds good. And it sounds like you use language in your exploration to help facilitate the opening of your mind. Like you're doing a lot of self-talk or like questioning your environment.
Today I went rode bike to before we met and I didn't want to write it at all. But because I didn't want to write it, I wrote it.
Hmm.
I was like, how about I go against what my brain is telling me?
Hmm.
Go right against it and try to challenge it. And I went and I had a beautiful ride. It was against the wind. It was hella hard. And then I got mad.
Yeah.
Suddenly out of blue, I'm pissed on humanity.
Yeah.
And I'm like, fuck, I have to stop and I have to write. And I have this inkling to write a lot that you fucking need to move your ass and be active because your body is freaking machine. This
Hmm.
machine needs to move. This anger came and I didn't even, I felt so normal, right? So I didn't really have this feeling all day long, but it came. And out of that creation was very much the empowerment for whoever, maybe me. I wrote a little essay about your body, your blood, your insulin level, your testosterone, your hormones, the breath, the oxygen, the lungs. And I'm like, I'm just writing this. Where is this coming from? And I'm buzzing from all this energy. And suddenly the memories started coming up. I'm climbing the trees. I am this age, like, I don't know, 12. From one tree, I break this branch, I fall down, and I'm standing up and running around the circle. And I'm constantly moving my body. So, this story from the past, from many, many different trees that I climbed, that the valleys that I ran when I was little, to the present moment was the chaotic information that came to me that I just put in one format.
Wow.
But I didn't intend it to be anything, it just
Yeah.
came.
Hmm.
Structure and open mind.
Mm. Beautiful. And he says here too, you open a floodgate of seemingly chaotic imagery in your inner life.
Many of which might not even be yours.
Yes. Right. Yes. And yeah, you're pointing to it. If you are not prepared for this and the chain reaction that will inevitably flow, all kinds of delusional problems can result. It is a projection of your own inner psyche. So, and he talks about identification with the experience as the potential trap. So where I find myself often is identifying with an experience or identifying with a story, and maybe why the book on archetypes of personality pissed me off so much because I'm like, well, it's revealing my shadow of identification and how I want to run from that being explicit because it's the voice that keeps showing up internally. And when you had dinner with your friend and she didn't have a wrong experience, there's something in me that's like, really? Like, are you sure? Because when I paint this picture of my life experience, I I'm identifying with it. So to hear another perspective is challenging. Um,
Mm.
but you've been able to tap into something for me which helps with this identification, which is you always relate back to feeling and feeling and energy. And because I'm so in this left brain growing up as a survival mechanism or whatever, that's how we evolve. Um, it's so helpful just to say, well, how do you feel? And let it be and carry on.
Mm. Are you saying you don't? You don't get to tap into this like side of you that is not supposed to talk, just feel.
Yeah, not very often. Um, and like the first question you asked me was, do you have time for like right brain activity, creativity, exploration, and play? And I don't make time for it. Like if I have nothing going on and I'm not called to do anything, I'll often choose to do something else instead of feel because it's a habit or because of the fear that whatever comes up. But
Okay, you know what came up?
yeah.
Our last session and the pillow.
Yeah.
And the moment you allowed yourself to feel something, you overwhelmed your nervous system.
Yeah.
And that's what he's saying, is that unless you're ready for it, you wouldn't know what to do with so much energy, actually.
Hmm.
With so much pure you,
Willpower. Yeah.
pure you,
Hmm.
part of you. But it's there. It's there. And it gets crowded by shadows all the time. It gets crowded by shadows. I'm like, I'm allowed. It's Aries season. I get to fucking say shit right now. Ugh. And I was like, take a deep breath, don't react. And I was so proud that I didn't react, but I could have. Why didn't I? Right? It gets crowded with so much of the left side of thinking, shadows, discipline, blame, shame, all these different things. It's like, then we never get to explore this side. Whatever that comes up, and it never comes up the same. It always is different because
Yeah.
it's not supposed to be the same. It's not an auto.
Hmm.
It's you're tapping into a pool of energy, and you may be channeling somebody else, something else. It's like
Hmm.
these people channeled information. I went down this spiral of art artists, including Frida Kahlo, Rembrandt, and I don't know, the Van Gogh, and like all these different people. And one of them, they lived in which was really interesting. I actually also wrote a story about this too. It's like while you listen to and watch their realism, and it was during the wars and during the first or whatever, no, French Revolution, actually. It was 15th century, and I don't know when. The art that comes out from the left side of the brain is very perfect. But
Hmm.
the art that comes out from the right side of the brain is your deep unconscious, and you're tapping into the realism of your own unconsciousness, but yet you're pulling it for collective. It's
Hmm.
never for you. So there was this artist that was painting for church at that time, and for kings and emperors, and went through Napoleon, and then it went through French Revolution and the Spain conquerors and all these different formats of the environment that he was in, painting beautiful portraits, beautiful shadow work. It's like it was masterpieces. And then retired in the cottage far away from the civilization. And in his last age, before he died in his 80s, he made his own masterpieces that he never wanted to do for public. Yet it was just the expression of the shadows that came out through him. The most terrifying pictures ever of the war, of the Sigmund Freud's side of the psyche and demonic side of the psyche, that we suppress the shadow that lives within all of us, but he was able to put it in it. You look at the picture, you look at the painting, and it's like the demonic painting of like huge terror of the hell painted on someone's picture. It is
Hmm.
so profound, but he was so real because he didn't want to paint a portrait of a king that
Yeah.
killed massively millions of people during the war. So he painted the realism, and
Hmm.
he opened the time for Baroque. And anyway, but that just like you can just like look into it and feel the essence of the space, because in this space everything can come up.
Right. 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 Right.
And you being having a major, your major is in art, right? Is that what you said last time?
No, no, I took 4 years of art in high school because of limited options. So I wouldn't say that I haven't really studied art, and it was high school, and it was a really small school in the middle of the cornfields.
Hmm.
Um, but I have a deep appreciation for art and music. Um,
Well, you also talk in a mystic way.
mhm,
Your thinking is very deep. It's spaceless. It doesn't have a form. It's not the same. It's very profound.
mhm. Yeah, if I had the choice, if there was a philosophy class of some kind, and I was like delighted when I got to college because I could take philosophy, and it was, freshman philosophy. So I get in there and I look at the curriculum and it's, Plato, Descartes, it's like all the Western philosophers, which is good. And then I raised my hand on day one and I said, "Are we going to be covering any Eastern philosophy?" And he like laughed at me. And I was like, "What's going on here?" And then I was like, I tuned out at that point. Because I'm like, I want the whole experience, the whole human experience. And I've studied, I spent 3 years just on my own, just exploring all the different forms of philosophy and religion. And I wanted to have the ability to share opinions and hear perspectives from maybe people that have studied in a more profound way. And when that was not the case, I was very can't think of the word.
Limited.
Yeah, felt limited and felt like tricked in a way. To even be
Hmm.
laughed at, I'm like, it's how very Western of you to laugh at someone that has a desire for learning in a field that doesn't match. Couldn't you just bring one book in and talk about it for a day or two?
Yeah,
It was it was eye-opening for me of the indoctrination of culture and ideas and how they form in structures like universities, colleges.
which is exactly why we're so left-brained.
Yeah, right.
And then you have to break out of it by actually doing your own study and exiting cultures and reading different literature.
Yeah. And but one could argue like it left me feeling empty of having that side fulfilled. And I think it led me to eventually getting getting a plane ticket and getting a backpack and a train pass and going around Europe and then eventually into Asia. And experiencing the culture firsthand, it's such a valuable experience. It goes beyond reading a book or reading a text.
Yeah.
So in
How
that
old were you?
when I travel, I was 25, 25, 26.
And you're saying experiencing culture in what way? Energetic way?
Yeah, like living, breathing in the city, in the country, and with the people. Um, yeah, beautiful and like really profound experiences. And some of the, I think some of the spiritual awakening happened from that trip because I would find myself being a solo traveler. I'd find myself in situations where I'm like, I am completely fucked unless someone helps me. And I wasn't thinking someone needs to help me, but people, it was like magic. It was like people showed up and they knew just enough English that they could provide me with, at one point I was traveling by boat on this like container ship from Italy to Greece. I was just trying to get over to Greece and I didn't know, but I got on there and I'm like, oh, we're like in a crew deck where it's like completely black. I thought there'd be like a window or something. And it's like you have these smokestacks and I'm breathing in this stuff. I'm like, this is horrible. And then I realize they don't take credit cards and they don't take credit cards in Greece. And I only have 20 euros. and I don't have water, I don't have food, I don't have a plan. And we get there in port, and I thought we were going to be showing up to like a city, and there'd be like an opportunity, just like in Italy and Switzerland and all these other places, to get around to talk to people. But it's like a deserted little port town. Nothing. It looked like a war zone. I was like really confused and got off the boat and didn't know what to do. And a bus showed up. I got on the bus, and this Greek guy, was driving the bus. He's like trying to like communicate to me I need to pay or whatever, or where am I going? And I'm like, I'm so stuck here. I don't know any Greek. And this woman from the back, she's probably 50. She comes up front, and she knew just enough English to tell me to help me. She got me water. She helped me get to Athens and paid for whatever. And she
Wow.
knew just enough to say, I have sons that remind me of you, and I wanted to
Oh
help.
my God.
I'm sorry I don't know more English. And I'm like, I'm in your country, a lost foreigner looking like an idiot, and you're telling me sorry. Like I was just like, wow. It was a right brain experience. But feeling not like I'm playing music, I'm in flow, but feeling like I'm part of the canvas in a way. Like I'm
I legit got chills all over my body just listening to it. So the energy that you were transmuting and like radiating right now was just like all over.
yeah.
Because the moment you start trusting universe, trusting that you will some not even planning on anything, things suddenly show up.
hmm Yeah. Yeah. And the traveling was a beautiful way to help me let go of so much. Because even in trying to plan and trying to be prepared, I can only do so much. And then after that, I really let go. And maybe too much, but I mean never too much. But it enabled some really incredible experiences in Asia, and we can get into that some other time. But um,
But for the moment is that you allowed your left brain to stop structuring because there was no structure. You were placed in the situations where you couldn't do anything that you knew how to do very well. So you surrendered. The moment you surrendered, universe just got your back. Bam, 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 bam.
mhm,
And you felt it's like you're again, it's all almost like when we tapped into the CD level, we always say the same thing.
mhm,
You almost have this like innate like what just happened, like
mhm,
how is this possible, and yet it's profoundly changing you because you allowed it to develop its own form and you never knew what form it had. You just dealt with it, you just went with the flow. It's like
mhm.
it almost like it's beautiful. I actually had the very same similar experience here in LA when I came, but we can talk about this later. Same thing,
Yeah.
synchronicities. People just show up, and you're like, what? What? Yes. Drive my car forever.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Trust me,
beautiful.
driver.
It's like you're saying surrender. That's a light way to put it. It felt much closer to a death. It was like there's nothing. When you're truly surrendering, it feels like an ego death. It feels like dying.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah, there's nothing you can do. So, the 11th gift, as you may sense, is a word of magic and fairy tale, but make no mistake about its real power. With the right structure, this energy of idealism will manifest great things in your outer life. Oh, if we only knew how to operate on this more than we do on the left side of the brain.
Yeah. Well, I I believe we're waking up to more experiences and more abilities to do so. And I think collectively, I think what's happening too is um out of the patriarchy into the more feminine, awakened states of being and relating with one another and even in science, like tapping into using art, like okay, now they're using sound science to figure out how plants are talking to each other. It's like, okay, we're beginning to do more and more of that stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the light.
Hmm.
Okay, shall we?
Yeah.
Damn, let me talk. Let's touch base on CD.
Yeah, this is so uprooting the tree of knowledge of good and evil. This was really cool for me from the logical side of my brain because I studied the Bible growing up and went to a Christian college initially, and got programmed in with all of the teachings in Genesis and what was being said. And I always found the story of the Garden of Eden to be like any explanation that was thrown out, I was like not satisfied with. I'm like, it's not can't it can't just be that. It can't just be a depiction of the real beginning of Earth. Like there are clear metaphors at play here that are talking about our experience right now. And I just had this intuition about so you're saying there's two trees, and one's the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and one's the tree of what is it? Tree of life. And then that's how things were. I'm like, this is totally a metaphor.
But what do you think the good and evil is?
It's just that. It's the duality, the nature of duality and the experience of duality. So once the characters decided to eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, they are then participatory in viewing reality as two-sided, as dualistic.
Mm. Do you think the collective? Well, okay, let's touch base on us first. Are you stuck in, do you find yourself being stuck with differentiating good and evil, good and bad?
It's a
Or
yeah, it's a habit. It's a habit and a temptation. I think it comes up all the time. It's just using judgment to place ourselves in the world to find um for me to find stability and even safety in a way, um in knowing my place or knowing where I'm at and who I'm relating with. But that doesn't mean that it happens often. Yeah, go ahead. Do you have more on that question?
I have some questions. Do you find this specific differentiation in spiritual community? What's
Yeah.
good,
Oh,
what's
yeah.
bad?
Yeah. It shows up more in the spiritual community, like the depiction of good and evil than anywhere else.
How do you know you're on any side?
You can't know you're on any side.
Mm,
Yeah.
exactly. So here's the one where and I have a note right here. It says, this purge sounds like hell.
Hmm.
Every projection or urge to identify with anything is gradually purged from your psyche. Once the process has ended, true reality manifests within the human being for the first time. This sounded like hell automatically, which is good and evil.
Hmm.
The purge itself sounded like hell, which is like, how do I make sure I'm on the better side of it? We don't. It says this is a rare occurrence, is the expression of the 11th CD, and it's a hallmark of the city of the Siddhic state. And I'm trying to justify. I don't have this CD, but reading the CD, I don't have this Jinky, but reading the CD, I literally had the entire time. It's like we're not ready for it. 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 Because we constantly go between the good and bad. This is right. This is wrong. This is right. This is wrong. It's like, but how do you know you're on any side of this? How do you know what you're doing is not wrong or is wrong?
Hmm.
How do you know? You don't. So the question is, are we ready? And are you finding collective getting ready to even tap into this city, or being very, very far?
Yeah, this one feels very far from the collective.
So fast forward, it's attached to the 55th. Did you
Yeah.
read the and you know what I wrote? This is me. Oh gosh, it's like, so what if it's me, right? It's like, fuck, I knew I shouldn't have said that, but this is what I felt. So at this time, I feel that the 55th is, expression of me, right?
Hmm.
But what's interesting is that this, it almost sounds like this will not get, the collective consciousness won't get to this evolved CD state of, what is it? Light, until other shadows start, like other CDs start like evolving. So this almost feels very, very far away.
Yeah. And to play the advocate of we've read the city of timelessness. So it's there's also a depiction being made where even in stating whether we're ready or not is a judgment, right? Because it could be these like enlightenment could be instantaneous and the acidic states could happen. I mean, if you could imagine one, like take forgiveness or timelessness or um unity, wouldn't the others just like wouldn't it just be like almost instantaneous? It would just be how could you
Chain
not?
reaction,
Yeah.
chain reactions.
Hmm.
So to play devil's advocate on
Yeah.
this timelessness, the specific time and a year is what tricks me when it comes to timelessness too. So he talks about 2012, and he talks about 2027 and
Mhm.
44 and whatever that it is, right? So it's like, but yet time here is listed as important factor into triggering these massive changes in our genetics for us to get to no time whatsoever. Do you remember what you did in 2012? Something happened to you.
Um, I remember reading about this and I noted it. Let me think back real quick. Let's see. Okay, personally, 2012, I kind of started to embody a like fuck it attitude. Well, I was before 2012, I was like on the right side. I was like on the good side. And on that year, I'm like, I'm just gonna do what I want and explore a little bit and try to have some fun and not be so serious anymore. So that's what happened to me in 2012.
Did that change you?
I think it enabled more growth for sure.
Did it come out of blue? Bam! Tomorrow you just woke up like this.
No, I mean, I made the decision quickly and I changed quickly. But I would say it was premeditated. It was kind of like a reaction to the repression.
Mm.
You know. How about you?
I moved to United States. I came here. And I was like, I came in the United States in 2012. And it just came out of blue, right? So the moment of realization and decision, like you said, just came.
Mhm.
And so I just decided. And then a year later, I'm here. I
Mhm.
decided in 2010, 2 years later, I was here actually walking. And when I realized this, and I was like, so I'm actually, it felt what it felt in that moment is that I'm supposed to be here. I'm not supposed to do this work out there. I'm actually
Yeah.
supposed to do it right here and in this city too, or for now in this city. But it's like we're guided. We are guided at all times,
Hmm.
and our lives are going to shift. And as your life shifted from Michigan to Hawaii, for whatever reason that we're yet to discover,
Hmm.
it is so cool when you look back and you connect all the dots, which makes sense because this work and this way of thinking out there in that culture will not will be like we have this like really mental hospital that everybody cracks jokes about it, and it's one and only in one country, and we're all sending each other there whenever you make any like crazy nuts non-traditional thinking or anything in life. It's like you want to get the free pass out there because you're supposed to go there. I would end up there probably if I were to talk like this, right? So
Yeah.
you need
Yeah.
the environment. But yeah, that was
Yeah.
really profound.
Oh, I'm happy you moved. And in 2010, you said you kind of were meditating on the decision. Did you feel like that came in?
It was Saturday. I was in college. Saturday, 9 a.m. I woke up and I just said, I'm going to go to the United States. I knew nobody, no one person who left, came back alive, meaning
Yeah.
US, I only saw in TVs, in Hollywood movies, like Runaway Bride type of Julia Roberts movie. That's it.
Hmm.
We never knew. We never left the country. And this just came to me. And I was like, okay, calling my mom. I decided I'm going to go. She's like, what? It's like, I don't know how I'm just going to go. I need to leave right now. And I did. Not right at that moment, but 2 years later.
Yeah. That's amazing. You remember the time and everything. Well, you must have
Yeah.
wrote it down.
No, it was, I mean, yeah, because you follow this feeling. It's
Hmm.
all that felt sense. It's like, maybe because I don't know, maybe because I'm not meant to have many distractions, like distraction in a way where I get to give myself to someone else. Or, maybe that's why I don't have kids or family. It's completely unstructured, right? So I get to feel this way,
Hmm.
which so far led me to where I am. But unless I allocate that time, even in a busy life, in a capitalistic way of every day going to, unless I dedicated time, nothing comes out. Literally, I'm just in cycle doing this.
Hmm.
So maybe next time you are getting pounded by the waves, just be like, this 5 minutes is mine. What you got for me?
I'll do that.
But unfortunately, it doesn't come like that. It comes when you don't expect it,
Right.
not when you want it.
Yeah. Well, I feel on an honest level, I feel that I'm working through so much right now that I don't think I would go out and volunteer to be like, what else you got? Bring me something
Mm.
crazy. I'm like, we have three kids, 4, 2, and 10 months. And in a lot of ways, it just feels like we're in survival. And there's a lot of ways that I feel like we're thriving too. Of course, we live in a beautiful place and we have a wonderful community. But I think because of this work, especially with the Gene Keys, um, I'm allowing light to shine on my own shadows and with
Mm.
the energies of everything that's happening and the shifting in the collective, there's just a lot of opportunity right now for shedding layers and growing and expanding and re outreaching and even just this lesson alone. And this is something that's really unique, I think, as we are going week by week through all 64. That's the level of intensity that I wouldn't necessarily recommend on everybody. Because even just this alone, the shadow of obscurity, you could spend months or a year or more on and reveal so much truth. And like Richard says, it's holographic. So you only need one to shift the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's April.
And
Wait a minute. We
yeah,
started this in December. Do you remember?
yeah.
We started this in December. And we were like, this is like a year and a half a commitment. You ready? You're like, yeah. And just allocating, I think this is again very healing because there's so much truth, our own truth, that it's different
Hmm.
and healing for both of us. It's almost like imagine if we're healing totally different shadows at the same time.
Yeah.
Time. It doesn't exist. Like we're actively like putting so much intention into this to really feel and explore this all three layers and question a lot of things about ourselves.
Hmm.
Question everything.
Hmm.
So maybe this is the way. This is really the way to like open that side.
Right, right. Yeah, I just got this image of a sponge filled with water and it has 64 holes in it. And what we're doing is we're actively squeezing out all the water.
That's a good image.
Purge.
Woo, child. Any last notes on the city? Flight.
Um, I do have one more. Just a moment. Okay.
Mm.
So the challenge in today's world is to bring clarity to the cosmic issue of good and evil. The mass consciousness operating on the left side of the brain favors light above all else. The good side. The feminine principle of darkness coming through the right side of the brain has been set against the light. This is why an upsurge in darkness always precedes the breaking through of the true light as opposed to our projected image of the light. And the pure light of the 11th city has nothing to do with good and evil. It represents the transcendence of duality. And this to me, this points back to the tree of knowledge of good and evil and taking the fruit of that tree and eating it and becoming dualistic and setting ourselves with the side of light. But the light that we've set ourselves alongside is projected out from within. It's not the true light.
Mm.
It has no capacity for the feminine right side of the brain, the dark that precedes it. And it's interesting too, if anyone has a chance to read through the 11th or listen to the audio, um, there's a lot of time spent in comparing the the light that we think of as light and then the true light of the city and how different those are. And I think just taking time to contemplate that could be really powerful.
How do you, how are they different for you?
I don't have comprehension um, as of right now, but I take that with gratitude and contemplating like, do you imagine laying out on a sunny day and feeling like the sun with your eyes closed, just like penetrating like every cell of your being and just like filling you with energy and you just like how relaxing that can be. And even that understanding of light doesn't equate to the true light. And it kind of just that contemplation alone is opening up this right side of my brain where now I'm like, oh, I've always thought of light as being light from the sun or an equivalent. If it's something else, can I let go of my own ideas of what that means?
Mm. the picture that came to mind was the Passover, when the soul, there are stages. So I heard that there are stages of preparation for the soul before you pass over. There are like 12 of them, and each stage gets rid of more and more of your physical, material, ego self, and then you come to a full, total acceptance, bliss, and light, light, light as a light, no
Yeah.
weight, right? No weight, because you're slowly detaching from the weight, which is the body and the material realm, and then you pass over. And then for some reason, it's just white.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, it's just white. Why do we always think of it as white?
Mm-hmm.
Light, like the tunnel that you're passing through, and there's a bridge, and then you're crossing over.
Mm-hmm.
But I still do, if I think of death as the beautiful process. And caution, I don't think of it as heavy, even though there's a part of me that it's afraid of it, the
Mm-hmm.
ending and the death of it. But yet, as I read about the process of ego death and passing over to a completely different dimension of soul dimension itself, is feels the light side of it. So when I speak about it, and I talked to my grandma, died 2 years ago, and I ended up going to see her months before, and she passed in her 90s. But she was really afraid of it up until I came, and was in panic that nothing is done. Everything is like, she has all these different things that she has to do, and it was very heavy and dark, almost like shadowy. So I come in and I said, and I started talking about how beautiful it is. Like, for some reason, to me, the entire process was very beautiful and weightless. And I said, you're gonna love it out there. And I started like just having smiles. My cheeks were hurting, and I talked about this process that I couldn't even believe that I said it. And her weight just dissipated, and she became lighter. And then she passed over a month later after that, like hoping, or I don't know, the almost like the weight in the room and energy in the room just like enlightened itself, because the brain now had a different information, her brain or her soul, and the light of it really brought her more blissful state
Mm-hmm.
in this realm before she passed over. So to me, the light itself is beautiful journey
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
of just like taking a boat and enjoying the waves of
Mm-hmm.
whatever frequency that you're riding or sailing on,
Yeah.
and it's ultimate happiness. I don't know. I have a
Yeah.
really beautiful feeling about that side of the death process in general.
Yeah. Yeah. And you gave her a gift by showing her a new perspective. And that's what we pointed at the beginning of this talk, is to access the right side of the brain, the feminine, the dark, is
Mm.
just opening up our perspective. One of the one of the tools that shows up for me, it's like super obvious, so I use it often, is imagining life through the eyes of my children, through my boys. And that just
Hmm.
like, I'm like, whoa, like the seriousness floats away, like the heaviness, the pressure, the worry, the fear, it
Hmm.
floats away. And so using that tool and using it in public is really fun too. Like, like a grandma in public transportation and just imagining life from her eyes, or whoever it is, or life from the eyes of an animal or from a plant or from a stone. Yeah.
None of it has a left, I mean, the left logical brain
Hmm.
programmed, not even your kids. They're all artists. That's
Hmm.
why they want to light your house on fire and draw on the walls, because there is no limits. There is
Yeah.
no limits.
Yeah.
We put the limits on.
Hmm.
Can I add last one? 2 more minutes. Everything is now okay. To the being with this city, nothing is obscured and no one can hide. Everything is now measured in terms of light and frequency, and it is quite clear who is authentic and who is simply pretending.
When I read that one, a little bit of fear came up. Like, are you the pretender? And then when you read it back now, I actually feel it feels lighter because it feels like I don't have to be the one to decide or figure that out. Um, but I'm not sure that's where you were going with it, so I'm curious to hear.
Same, same like you. A little bit of fear. Oh,
Mhm.
someone can see me?
Yeah.
Like, see all my shadows?
Mm.
I should only know them, right? So very protective, but at the same time, who are we kidding?
Mhm.
And who are we hiding from? And can we really hide? Is the
Yeah.
question, or it's just
Well, that's the
where,
fear. Yeah.
yeah, we can rather than letting it be and enjoy the journey.
Mhm. Could you imagine meeting such a being? They just look at you and you're like, oh shit.
Can you? I see them every day here in LA. Zzz, 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 wrong, 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 wrong. Ah,
But it's
just
something,
kidding.
it would be at a depth of your soul. It would be so profound. I think of when Ram Dass met Maharaji.
That story that I was talking about was very contributing very much the studies of Ram Dass, and he states that he would get to, yeah,
Mm.
and he's where the body doesn't really mean anything. Have you heard of John of God?
Say again?
John of God
Mm.
from Brazil.
Mm.
I'll send you a YouTube so you can watch. This is the guy who, this is a man who cures diseases in the body, tumors, brain tumors, cancers, all these different things. And I don't know if he's still alive, but he just goes like, "Zoop," and all these ancient medicinal doctors or whoever created, what is his name? I mean, Paracelsus, and you name them.
Mm.
The 3 major ones actually enter his body, and he literally takes a scalpel, chooses the energy, goes like and cuts without anesthesia, without anything, and literally puts things through your nose and takes the tumor out and saves people, gives them hope. But yeah,
Wow.
it's interesting. I'll send it to you. I actually watched it last week, but we're
Yeah.
good. We don't need to stress about
Yeah.
anything in life. Let's just play.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This is so good. 2 hours, Eric. We're
Yeah.
just extending our time more and more. Thank you. Lots of love.
Thank you.
Love to you and kids and Carly.
Yeah.
Ciao.